I am graduating high school today.
Graduating.
Today is my last day of high school ever. As I finish a gigantic chapter of my life, I wanted to find a way to physically document it and reflect back on everything that has happened in the past 6 years. And what better way to do that than to make a scrapbook? But first, I need a bunch of materials. You will need a bunch of colorful pens, some washi tape, scissors, any sort of glue, stickers, some Polaroids, and some tickets that you might want to scrapbook into your book, and obviously, a scrapbook. But of course, it wouldn't be a scrapbook without a bunch of memories documented through printed photos. I printed these photos at a local store of mine. I printed 100 6x4 photos and they were worth $15, so 15 cents per photo. So it was pretty cheap, and I recommend doing that and outsourcing rather than wasting the ink on your printer. I'm so excited to make this scrapbook, so let's begin. And I got a few more pastel washi tapes. But basically, for the front cover, I'm gonna be using all of this paper. But it's missing the color yellow, so the only pastel yellow I could find are on sticky notes. So if you don't have these kind of colors, you could always just get sticky notes. But this is the paper pad I got. You can probably get it off Target or Kmart, which is where I got it from because I live in Australia, so love that. While I make this scrapbook with you, I decided I wanted to give you big life lessons that I learned for each year of high school. Keep in mind that high school in Australia lasts for 6 years and not for 4, so we'll start all the way back in year 7. Year 7. I was literally still a kid when I started year 7. I was 12 years old, about to start this new big journey of my life in this gigantic school that I just was not used to. But my advice to any year 7s out there that are watching my videos or around that age is to try everything, even if no one you know wants to do it with you. You see, every school has their own opportunities, their own extracurriculars, their own clubs, and it's what you do with those opportunities that are presented to you that build you and that make you into who you are. I genuinely wouldn't be who I am without trying out all those different clubs that were available to me at that time, without going into that student leadership role, without going into that random coding robotics club that only lasted for a few weeks, or without joining choir for the first time and walking into a room full of people so much older than me that literally did not even know my name at the beginning. I remember when I walked into choir, I was a little bit nervous, but I was excited because I always went by the motto of making the most out of every single opportunity. And when I put my expression of interest in an email, I knew that I wanted to join even if none of my friends were there. And it worked out because even though I knew no one, over time I started making connections with people in other year groups, and I learned a lot about singing and had many performance opportunities that I learned from. And if I hadn't joined that, I don't think I would be the person that I am or the music lover that I am today. So this is your reminder that it's your time to explore and branch out and try out that new thing, even if you think you're bad at it. Speaking of things that you're bad at, there was one thing I tried that I did fail. And that was auditioning for the school dance team. You see, I had never really danced before, but I had a big interest in learning how to dance, but I just didn't make it that year. However, I will talk about that more in year 8. Year 8. Well, you could say that I was still at the beginning of high school, so I continued my motto of doing everything I could and trying to experience anything I could find. But do you remember the rejection email that I got last year in year 7? Well, I was determined to try again, even though I failed the year before. Throughout year 7, I had worked hard on my dance skills at home and also used a few opportunities out of school to help myself prepare for the year 8 junior dance team auditions. And, well, this year I got in, and it was one of the biggest successes I had and came with the best rewards. It kind of just goes to show that it's okay to try something even if you have a chance at failing it, because there are always going to be other chances and you learn something from it. And as for me, I learned that I was not the best at dance, and I needed to find ways to work around that. So just know that I was not always a talented dancer, and I did have to work a little bit harder to get in to the team, but that's okay. There's always something new to try, and it's never too late to start. So my message for you in year 8, or anyone at any age really, is that, hey, if you want to try again, that's okay. And if you want to join something new, whether it's the green team in high school, the math competition that you got invited to by your math teacher, or a random bridge building competition to test out your STEM skills, just say yes, because you gain a lot of experience from it and you make loads of new connections. And I guess that's what I continued doing in year 8, trying any extracurricular I could find and learning to discover myself in the process. Alright, hello everyone. I'm 1/3 of the way if you're making a scrapbook, and I just wanted to pop in and let you guys know how this whole scrapbooking thing is going, because if you didn't know, it's actually my first time scrapbooking. So this is how my scrapbook is going so far. We have a few pages. Some of them I filmed on camera, some of them are off camera. And I guess I will give you 3 pieces of advice if you want to start scrapbooking. Number 1, have a solid glue stick. I started off this scrapbook with the most terrible, horrible glue stick. It made it so hard for me to paste things on properly. But when I decided to switch glue sticks to this brand new one, it was just so much easier to glue things down, and it just made my life 10,000 times faster. And I think if I began with this, I would have done things a lot more quickly. Advice number 2 is to not be afraid to play around with different colors and different layers when you're doing your scrapbook. I have had so much fun doing each spread, and I've had a little theme for each spread. I played around with notebook papers, rainbow paper, masking tape. I ripped layers of music sheets on top of cardboard. It just creates so much more dimension and fills up the white space in your notebook. So don't be afraid and just layer it up, you know what I mean? My third piece of advice is to categorize your photos, which I will now be doing for year 9, and I'm just going to be filming the process of that because I printed a lot of photos, and if I don't categorize them into for example, friends, class moments, extracurriculars, they will just be all over the place in my scrapbook. Personally, I didn't do my spreads in fully chronological order, but however you want to categorize them, just make sure you do. It just makes it so much easier to think of a theme for your spread, and also when you look back at your scrapbook, it just makes more sense. I have been really enjoying the process, and it's just been nice looking back at all these memories. A little bit nostalgic, but we'll talk more about that later. If you haven't noticed, I haven't talked much about class bonding so far. But That's because I wanted to save it for year 9. Because personally for me, year 9 was the peak of class bondings. And of course, you might be wondering, hold on, so what about online school? You're literally segregated. Yes, we did have online school, but it was only for around 4 to 6 weeks. In Australia and in my state, we didn't have lockdown as long as other countries because our cases were really low. And second of all, even though we did have online school, unpopular opinion, but I actually enjoyed online school a lot, and I still felt bonded with my classes because we had the funniest inside jokes and we had the funniest moments over text and over chat. And honestly, the teachers that did the online school meetings made it so much fun. So personally for me, I found that a way to bond with my class more than a way to separate with my class, but that was just my experience. And the second thing that made me feel super bonded with my year group was, drumroll please, sorry, Among Us. Yeah, 2020 guys, the peak of the Among Us game. I think around 1/3 of our year group was on this one Discord server, so there's like 40 to 50 people on a Discord server, and we would stay up and we would just play so many rounds of Among Us. And all I can say is don't take for granted these late night chats, these class group chats, these big classes, because they don't last forever. But of course, the peak of social life with classes also comes with the peak of drama. Friendship breakups, heart breakups, you name it. It happens to all of us. And I'm not here to give you step-by-step advice because that's honestly a whole nother video in itself. But all I can say is it's normal to drift, to argue, and to change. I remember there was this one moment in class where I was really, really upset, and I did end up crying a little bit. And there were 2 teardrops on my exercise book that I teared up on. And one of my really good friends drew a bunch of flowers around the teardrops. And all she said was, "Look at these flowers. That means that your tears, this rough moment that you're going through right now, can allow you to grow into something more and to blossom." And I just said, "Yeah, the flowers are so pretty." And since there were 2 flowers, I said, "I'm gonna find my flowers someday." And she said, "You are your own flower." And you know what? That moment made me realize, yeah, I am. So for those of you listening, I want to say that you are your own flower. You can go through, you can grow through anything life hits you with the help of God, of course. And you don't need anyone else's validation for your capability. And at the end of the day, you lose some and you gain more. I gained a lot of friendships that year, even though I lost a lot too. So just know that this is just a small moment in your life and you will get through it. And at the end of it all, you'll grow into something more, just like these 2 flowers. Year 10. In year 10, I finally found my group. It took 4 years of high school, but I found it. In year 10, I realized how finding the right people is so important, and how finding even a small group is so much more fulfilling than being around a big group of people that make you feel terrible. It takes time though. It takes time to find the right people, but just know that you deserve people who acknowledge your value, who you click with, and people who are good influences to you. Because influence is a big thing in high school, and you can often be swayed by your own values just by being surrounded by the wrong people with the wrong values. And yes, year 10 was also my last year of freedom. All I can say is that it's not too late. It's not too late to put yourself out there, to try out that school club. I started a bunch of things in year 10 that I hadn't done throughout the last 3 years of high school. I did theater for the first time, which was literally the best experience ever. I also gave up dance electives for sewing, which I also don't regret because I now know how to sew clothes. For me personally, year 10 was the last year where I got to let loose, because the last 2 years of high school you have to take studies really seriously. And we ended off the year with this beautiful river cruise, which I will say, it genuinely was the best night of my high school life. I just felt a euphoria of happiness. I don't know what it was, but river cruise was the funnest night ever. Funnest. Yeah. Year 11 and 12. I decided to combine these 2 years together because these last 2 years of high school were honestly a big blur. Like, when I look back at the last 2 years of high school, I just see it as one because it was just so repetitive and such a blur. These were definitely the hardest years of my high school life. Classes in year 11 and 12 weren't so big anymore. Literally, my smallest class was 5 people. 5 people. 5. And my biggest class was probably like 20. But that was one class. Like, the rest of my classes were like 10 people. Like, I swear. Although there were moments like dinner dance and the ball and things like Harmony Day, the rest of it was all just blurred into studying, having a mental breakdown about whether or not I'm good enough, and studying more. If you want some advice on how to deal with studying and deal with the last year of high school, I have 2 videos on it, so make sure to watch it. So let's just skip to graduation. Looking back at all these photos, all I can say is that it's crazy looking back at all the big things and the little moments that have literally shaped me into the person that I am. I feel like I've made the most out of everything I could, and I've done all that I can. So I'm ready. I'm ready to move forward. Goodbye, high school, and hello to the next chapter of my life.